All right, guys, welcome to the Metal Bob Live podcast. I am your host, Metal Bob. We got co-host Bazooka Phil, and our guest this afternoon is professional bassist, Mr. Dave Fowler. Dave, how are you, sir?
Bob, I'm doing all right. Hello to you and Phil, and thank you for having me today.
No, we really appreciate your time today, man. We've been looking forward to having you on.
Well,
Yes.
thank you, man. I enjoyed the last time we did this, so that's very cool.
Yeah, it's a good time. So, I noticed a lot of here lately. You've been in the studio a lot lately. What you got going on?
Well, I do. I have a partnership with my longtime buddy Kent Wells. He's Dolly Parton's producer, and we do songwriter demos. And basically, anybody that's a songwriter can come record with us. We charge a $1,500 per song, but that gets everything. That gets our production value. It gets all the musicians, all the studio time, extended time to do their vocals, background vocals, mixing, mastering, the whole shooting match. So it's really a lot for it sounds like it's a lot of money, but you get a lot for what you spend.
Gotcha.
You know, so we do that once a month. I do songwriter demos. So we've been doing a lot of that. Yeah.
And where is this that you do all this at?
On Music Row, downtown.
Music Row?
Kent Wells Productions.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
anybody's
you
out, it's a songwriter that wants to come to Nashville and record with top tier musicians. These we use guys that played on Faith Hill, Tim McGraw records, and just it's very top notch.
sounds like a great deal.
Wow, yeah.
So what you got planned this afternoon, buddy, when you get off the horn with us?
Well, I've got a gig next Saturday with my longtime friend Sarah Morrow. Sarah worked with Dr. John when I worked for Dr. John. And it's quite interesting, man, because it's trombone, bass, and drums. That's all it is.
Nice.
So
Oh,
we're doing
nice.
some old classic tunes and a few of her originals. And some of it is really rock, and some of it is kind of pop, funky. And then some of it are like we're doing, Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone.
Okay.
There's stuff like that. So I was supposed to have a rehearsal with her this afternoon, but man, it's like 81 degrees here. So I think me and my little boy will hop on the Harley when we get done and go take a little spin.
Well, stop by and pick me up, would you? So
Nice.
yeah, I know that I've talked a lot about you to Phil, and I know Phil has a few questions for you. I know that he would like to know some of the things that some of the people you've played with and some of that kind of stuff. So if you got something to ask him, Phil, go for it, man.
Hey, man.
Yeah, you have a great resume. I mean, just incredible. And so, like, working with all these artists as a studio musician and then also as a touring musician, can you give me some highlights from both of those aspects of the business?
Man, I equally enjoy both aspects. There's really, I would say there's no substitute for playing live because you feed off the energy of the people, and it's just when you make eye contact and you're having fun and they're having fun, and it's just that mutual thing where everybody's just kind of enjoying themselves. There is really no substitute for that. But the studio is a completely different animal. You have to get in a different mindset because everything you do is under a microscope, So you have to really pay close attention to what you're doing, and every note counts. Every note counts in the studio, and it counts live too. You can fudge live, where you can't in the studio because it's going to tell on you. But man, there's just over a 40-year career, Phil. I appreciate your question, and I'm certainly not trying to avoid it, but I can't. It would be impossible to pick any certain highlights. Most certainly a few that stand out studio wise is when I played on Lori Morgan's Something in Red record, and that wound up selling a few million copies. And then I got to work in the studio with Bill Simzik that did all the Eagles records we've ever heard. And Joe Vitale played drums, and Joe is legendary in his own right, And so that was a big highlight, getting asked to do that. I did get to play on 2 tracks with Toby Keith, a few years ago. One of them was on the soundtrack for his movie, Beer for My Horses. And I got to do that. And, man, I've just been real blessed to, I've been able to do so much. It's really, I count it a real blessing that I've been able to do the things that I've done, you know.
Yeah, I think
I appreciate it.
back, but I don't know. I've been talking to you for years. I mean, we've talked before about me and you go back to MySpace days. I mean, that's how long I've been chatting with you on the internet.
Mhm.
And I think when I first met you, I think you were still tour manager for Dolly Parton, if I'm not mistaken. This would have been probably 20 years ago or better.
Probably, yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds about right. Mhm.
Do you still have pretty close contact with Dolly?
No, I mean, I see her once in a while, but I don't really have, everybody assumes since I worked with her that we're hangout buddies, but I don't see her. My partner, Kent Wells, is very close with her for many years, and he is her primary record producer. So he sees her a lot, and he's had the really long standing friendship with her. And I got into that camp because of Kent. So Kent's with her quite often, and I see her when, down at the studio sometime, or, I really haven't seen her. She's been dealing with a lot of things, it's not like a big secret, but her husband has been quite ill. So she's staying close to home, and I really don't think she wants to tour anymore, man. She's
Mhm.
had just an amazing career. I saw her when they were making the Rock Star record, which I got to be a small part of,
Yes.
and that was probably the last time I actually saw her. But she's just a wonderful humanitarian, just a great person. Uh, really does her best to be all things to all people, but can only stretch yourself so much. You know how that goes.
Absolutely.
Now, you played on the Skinner track, is that right?
I did.
That's what I thought.
I
I
did.
thought I saw one of your videos of you practicing,
Mhm.
warming up on your page, and I was like, yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I was actually when they decided to put Ronnie's original vocal on that track with her, it was not public knowledge, and they didn't want it out. So I was not supposed to shoot that video because I had to see, she had to sing the song in D, the key of D. The original was in G. So I had to go back in and do my part over G for Ronnie's vocal. And I knew I was capturing a special moment, you know. So I was like, well, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'll hang on to it and not put it out until after the fact, then I'll be safe. I really wasn't supposed to shoot the video, but I could not pass up.
Yeah, that's a special. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very special moment, and I'm glad I thought to do it, because usually I don't think about that stuff, but I did in this instance. So yeah, that was and coincidentally that track was is what spurred on her doing the Rockstar record. We did ours
Oh,
first. We did ours months before the Rockstar record was even a thought. And
I love her integrity, especially being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And she, at first she was like, I'll respectfully decline. I'm not really a rock artist. I don't really consider myself a rock artist. And then her impact that she had on that genre, and a lot of people, how they, even myself, I grew up with Dolly Parton. I'm a rock guy, but Dolly was in our house all the time. My mom's always playing her album stuff. So she reaches across genres and stuff, and her songs have been covered by, pop artists and different things as well. But coming back and doing and saying, if I'm going to accept this, then I'm going to do a rock album. I loved that she's like, there's integrity to this. So if I'm doing this, I'm going to put out a rock album, and we're going to make this right. And I love that about her. I love that you're part of that too.
yeah, her thinking on that honestly was, Pat Benatar was up and in true Dolly fashion, she said, if I get in there and Pat Benatar does not get in, she wasn't going to be happy about that. And it speaks a lot into her integrity about that, So she was really concerned that everybody would vote for her, and then maybe somebody that really truly deserved to be in there, and she deserves to be in there. But you know what I'm saying? If it's like Pat Benatar got denied and she got in, she would have really felt bad. But fortunately, Pat got in, and everybody got in that was supposed to, I guess. So it worked out all right.
Yeah, and the list of names of the guys and gals that stepped up to do this record with Dolly is endless. I mean, Rob Halford and Nikki Sixx, a lot of these big name players, and they were on the record. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's crazy because Kent says all the time that, people are always reaching out wanting to do projects with her, Sting and Elton John, and they're always calling his office wanting to do projects with her, but she just can't do it, so many, But this one finally came to light to where she got to work with Hart and Elton John and Sting and even Paul McCartney and Ringo, did a track with her. So and I was really happy for Kent that he got to make that record because he deserved that. There was talk that she might use another producer at one point, maybe, but it was never, in her mind, it was never an issue. It was always going to be Kent. And I'm really happy because he's been one of my best friends for 40 years. And if there's a guy on this planet that deserved to make that record, it was Kent Wells. And he even, like, Sting sent him a personal email, commending him on his productions, for Every Breath You Take. And so it was a great feather in his hat and extremely well deserved.
It was very well received too. The album was very well received.
Yes, it was.
Dave, I want to circle back around to you and your videos. You play this amazing looking bass, and I think it comes from T.M. Stevens, the one that has the kind of painted splatter look with the what is it, leopard print.
It's a little. Let me pull up a photo and I'll show you.
It's an amazing looking bass.
Yeah,
I noticed you played a lot in your videos when you're doing your videos. So
yeah, I take it out and play it.
Yeah, that thing's awesome.
Yeah, that's a USA Kramer era Spectre. I actually saw him play that with Joe Cocker when I was a kid. Little did I know I would wind up owning it someday. Got to be friends with TM, and unfortunately we lost TM last month. He passed, and he had dementia. I went to see him one final time when he first got sick, and it really broke my heart because I got to be pretty close with him. And there are two main, there are many, but if I had to pick just two guys who are my main influences as bass players, it would be TM and Billy Sheehan. And I've gotten to become really good friends with both of them. I've had the good fortune through co-owning Bass Frontiers magazine of becoming friends with all my bass heroes. And that's, Cliff from AC/DC. I see your hat. Cliff's a really good friend of mine. Verdine White from Earth, Wind and Fire. Of course, Billy lives here, and Billy and I hang out, and he's a very close friend. TM was. I've been very lucky to become friends with a lot of guys that I just heard when I was a kid that influenced me, but TM and Billy were my biggest influences, and got to be pretty tight with TM. And the last time I saw him, he didn't know me. So that was real tough.
My condolences on that. I know that I saw that online, and I thought it was a nice, respectful thing that you're doing when you're playing the bass. And then I went back and was checking out some photos and stuff, and I saw that he was in a photo playing that bass, and I was like, oh, he must have got that bass from TM, and so I just, you know, it was an incredible looking bass. It's a great tribute as well to him.
Well, thank you, man. Yeah, that was an exciting moment when, you know, I'd been after him to sell me that bass for a long time. And it just kind of evolved that what I didn't know at the time when I purchased the bass from him is he was in the ons he had the onset of dementia, but he didn't know it yet. And I noticed he kept telling me the same things over and over from time to time. And it was like, I felt that was kind of odd. And he, you know, I kept bugging him about it. And I finally got in a unique position to make him a decent offer on the bass. And I told him, I said, Tim, you know, I know it's worth more than this, but I'm in a unique position to offer you this amount of money, and you'll have it by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning in certified funds. And I said, I'm not putting you on the spot for an answer, but you know how much that bass means to me. And he decided to sell it to me, a long story short. And so I was able to get it, and I was thrilled to pieces to have it. It's a wonderful bass, you know, and iconic. You know, if anybody sees it, they know it right away. You know, I actually have a poster sitting over here against the wall that's framed that him holding the bass. Yeah, it was an ad for Blue Steel Strings, Dean Markley, and he's holding that bass in the ad. Yeah.
Oh,
You've actually gotten a couple basses from Billy too, haven't you?
Yeah, Billy gave me, I have, I can't remember, maybe 91 was the 10th anniversary of Billy being with Yamaha. And they made a limited edition 10th anniversary Yamaha Attitude. And they made 300 of them. And they made half of them in purple and half of them in black. And Billy gave me serial number 2
oh wow.
of that series. So I have it sitting in here in my practice room. And yeah, I've been lucky. I have I have great friends that, you know, and I'm really not any different than anybody else in that, you know, I moved here at the, you know, thank God at the right time, and just got lucky in a few spots, and I've managed to make a living in this business, and I'm continuing to make a living in it, you know, 40 years later. So
Well, that's a tribute to you as well. You got to remember that if you weren't an easy guy to work with or a good guy to work with, or, you know, there's different aspects of the business that can get a guy out of the business real fast. And you've been there for a long time, serving in, you know, different hats and in the business. So that's a tribute to you and you as a person.
well, thank you,
More
man.
so as just an artist as well. I mean, you're a super skilled bass player, don't get me wrong, but you as a person, translating through all those different hats and everything, that's a nice
Tour
tribute.
managing is it's a hard thing because you're responsible for literally everything. And you got to take care of the artist, you got to take care of the band, you got to take care of the crew, you got to take care of the bus driver, got to be sure that you set leave times, you check in and out of hotels, you do all the tour accounting. It's a hard job. I learned to do it very early on for Lori Morgan. Lori was very patient with me. She asked me if I would take on those duties. And I told her, if you be patient with me to learn, sure. And so I'm glad I learned that skill. It's not my favorite thing to do at my age now, but I'll do it. But I charge a lot for it because I can, and it's it's a lot, you know, it's a lot, you know, managing everything, and it's really difficult if you play and tour manage. I did that for Billy Bob Thornton on a few tours, and it was pretty arduous, but he was very patient with me and afforded me, you know, what I needed to do the job. So it was great.
I imagine you probably learned a lot about the business through the managing aspect of it.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Right. So yeah, you said you played with Billy Bob. You was with those guys for what, a couple, 2 or 3 years playing with them, or
I did like I can't remember. I did 3 or 4 tours with them,
Yeah.
and it was great, man. I love Billy. To this day, he's one of my very best friends. And we talk, fairly often, and we text even more often. We're always sending each other funny stuff, but he's a great guy. He's in Fort Worth, Texas right now. Taylor Sheridan, that did the series Yellowstone, has a new series about Texas oil fields and oil businessmen, and he wanted Billy for the role, and Billy accepted. So he's down in Fort Worth right now until June. He's already been down there like 3 months, but he'll be there till June shooting that. And he's doing well, doing real well. I'm very grateful. There again, another guy that I met that I really was a fan of.
Yeah, I know. I actually had the opportunity to see the Box Masters, and I really enjoyed the show. They're a great group of guys, and they're a great group of musicians.
Yeah, they sure are, man. Mhm.
Is it JD, right? Is that the guitar player? JD?
Lady Andrew.
Yep, JD Andrew. Yeah.
Yep. Did you see him when I was in the band, Bob?
No, I didn't. No, because I'd been up there bugging you if I'd have seen you up there.
Uh,
No, I didn't. This was
He was at the front of
probably,
the stage with his hands on the stage and his chin up there
yeah,
with
but
this pouty
this was
look.
probably 3 or 4 years ago. I seen him.
yeah, you're probably my buddy Raymond Hardy
Mhm.
playing bass. Raymond's a really good buddy of mine. He was actually the tech, and when the reason that I couldn't travel as much as Billy travels was, I do shared custody with my little boy. He just turned 13, and I just can't be gone for 60 to 90 days at a time.
Right.
And so I had a long talk with Billy, and he completely understood and supported me. And he's like, "Well, who are we going to get?" Because he's really, uh, he's the coolest guy in the world, but he's really particular who is in his inner circle. And I recommended Raymond. Raymond had been teching for us, and Raymond just happens to be a really good player too, really good player. But he's the hardest working guy I know. So I recommended Raymond. To Billy, and he just fit like a glove. And Billy already loved him, so it worked out wonderful. And he still plays with Billy.
Nice.
I love the story how you got in Billy Buck Thornton's band. Um,
Yeah,
learning it on a flight down the set and
it was a
coming in and they
drive down. Yeah, it was a drive to
drive. Yeah.
Alabama. Yeah, I learned it in the car on the way, man.
Yeah. That was great. I love that.
It's funny what you can do when you know you have to.
Well,
Yep.
sometimes pressure is good, sometimes it's a good thing.
It's good for me usually because it forces me out of my little safety zone to get, to have to do it. Yeah, man.
So let's talk about another hat that you wear, like production.
Yeah.
So like being on each side of the glass, uh, do you like the production side as much as the playing side?
I do. The creative process is really a lot of fun. Especially when you got, a songwriter from different parts of America, and they've never done anything on that level. And to watch them light up as their song comes to life is really special. Because we get, like I said, we use the guys on our recordings that do all the big records, and they really know how to make a recording really come to life really fast. And to see a songwriter, shed some tears or laugh with joy because their song is all of a sudden way more than they ever anticipated it could be, that's special, and it's just applying yourself and just paying attention to what's going on and making suggestions, and then and making sure that the writer is happy with what's going on. But I do enjoy that process. It's a lot of fun. And it really forces you to pay attention. The studio, man.
Mm.
So you still got that white, the original white Spectre that you picked up years ago?
Oh yeah, man, I'll be buried with that thing or leave it to my little boy. Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
That the TM bass sounds good. It's the exact same. They're only a few serial numbers apart too, ironically. His is number 1554 and my white one is 1569.
Oh, wow.
So, but there's some of the, guitars are weird because, you can build two exactly the same. But even though the wood comes out of the same tree, they can still have different tone characteristics. So his bass is more aggressive. It's really aggressive sounding. And it's good for a lot of things. But my white one is the smoothest, sweetest, um, as far as tone goes. It's the best sounding Spectre. Everybody that puts it in their hands and plays it wants to buy it because I've never played another one like that one. There's just something about that one, and I bought it over the phone, man, from the bass place. I was on tour in Oregon with Lori Morgan, and I think we were on tour with Alabama that year, I think, and Clint Black. And if I remember correctly, and I'm not even sure that's right, but um, if we got into town a day early, I would rent a car and just go tool around, and sightsee and explore. And I was on my way back to the hotel and I passed, we don't have them anymore, but I passed a record store. Or we have them, but they're just not as like they used to be, as you guys know. And in the big window right up front was that huge police poster of Sting jumping off the drum riser with that white Spectre, from the Synchronicity tour. And I passed by and I saw that poster and I was like, wow. So I turned around, I went back to the record store, bought the poster, went to the post office and mailed it home to myself. And then that started my hunt for a white Spectre. But what I did not know is during the Kramer era, they only made like 108 or 109 white ones.
Oh,
So
wow.
it took me 2.5 years to find that bass, searching nationwide,
Wow.
everywhere, man, to find that bass. And finally, 2.5 years later, Lee Miller from the bass place in Arizona calls me up and he says, David, did you find a white Spectre? No, still want one? Yep. He says, okay, this guy named Bobby Hornsby, I sold him this one new and he's going to come trade it in next week. I said, well, it just so happens that I'm going to be in Phoenix in a couple of weeks. Put it in the back and put my name on it and do not let it get away. So I bought it and I never even played it. I bought it without, but it turned out to be the one.
Nice.
It's funny because my buddy Tom Rutledge, who also works with Dolly, asked me one time, and I never thought about it in these terms, but this is a really cool. He said, Dave, how much money do you think you've earned with that bass? And I got to thinking about it. Well, this is, several years ago. And I got to thinking about it, and I had probably earned over $500,000 with that bass.
Wow.
Over time,
Right.
over a long time. But yeah, that well paid for itself.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's paid for itself there. What else you got there, Phil?
Well, actually, I noticed that he mentioned this earlier. A Harley guy. He likes to jump on his Harley and go for rides. I was going to ask you about that because I saw you with the Harley jacket and do-rag and different things. I'm like, I was going to ask you, do you own a Harley and do you go for rides? But
Oh yeah, I love them, man. I have a 2006 CVO Screaming Eagle Fat Boy, and it's a cobalt blue and nebulous yellow. And
oh,
it's beautiful. And they made 3 different colors that year in the CVO Fat Boy. There's Concord purple and red is one of them, and then the blue and yellow, which I have. And then they made one called autumn haze, maybe it was like an orange and blue, and I had one of those. but I really wanted the blue and yellow one. And so when I got the blue and yellow one, I sold the blue and orange one. But I really enjoy those. They're, yeah, I don't recommend that people go out and get one unless you really can focus, because it only takes a second of not paying attention to get really hurt or killed, and I'm kind of all over the map a lot, except when I'm on that thing. When I'm on that thing, my phone goes away in the backpack or the fanny pack or wherever, where I can't even see it. And you have to pay attention every second, because it's everybody else you got to watch,
Right.
Yep.
because nobody's looking. Mine's real loud too, so that they can't see me, they'll at least hear me. But I really enjoy that part, especially as I've gotten older. I just love motorcycles, especially the Harleys. And if they've got two, it doesn't have to be a Harley, but I have a lot of friends that have Suzukis and Yamahas and Hondas, and a lot of friends that have Harleys. But if it's got two wheels and you enjoy it, that's all that matters,
Yeah. I grew up on motorcycles, and then when I got older and started a family, my wife was anti motorcycle just because she had a family member that had a bad wreck, and so I respected that and stayed away from purchasing one. But now that I got the kids out of the house, and the wife's kind of calmed down a little bit around it, I've been always thinking about getting back into riding again, because I do miss it. It was definitely something
Yeah.
I enjoyed a lot.
Well, I did the same thing. I had a really beautiful custom Fat Boy. It was had been completely redone and raked out, and it was beautiful. And I sold it when my little boy was born. And I thought, well, I'll get rid of it until he gets, 10, 12 years old, then I'll get another one. And that's exactly what I did. I think it was 9 or 10 when I got back and bought another Fat Boy. They seem to be my favorite. I want
Same
a
with me.
I want a straight glide, but I love the Fat Boy motorcycle. It just suits me real well. I like it a lot.
Back in the early 90s, I ran across a taxi cab colored Fat Boy, and I think it was in Wichita at the time.
Mhm.
And I tried that thing out, and I was like, oh my gosh, man, I should buy this. But I had no way of getting it back home unless I bought a trailer and pulled it back home. So I thought, well, I'll run across another one of these sometime. That I've never found anything else like it that really, called out to me. And so I
Funny how they
I
do
pick
that,
myself.
right?
Yeah, yeah. It's just like a guitar. For me, I have to play them. They have to feel right. And you can play the exact, like you said, the exact same model, exact same build, same wood and everything. And one feels great and another one just doesn't speak to you. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's the same thing with, to me, with motorcycles and other aspects of life.
Yeah. That's it. That's how that's how they work. Guitars and bikes.
Yep. Yeah.
I have did you guys see the Leonard Skinner tribute bass that I
Yeah.
have?
Yes.
Seen it? Yeah. I've got it, now that I'm no longer with Artemis, I'm gonna sell that bass. I'm gonna put it up for sale. And I'm hopeful. I played it. That's the bass I played on Dolly's Freebird with her and Gary Rosington and Ronnie and Artemis. So I'm gonna try to get enough out of it to get a street glide. If I,
Nice.
you know,
It-
it's a yeah.
Going back to Ronnie, that you said that they used his voice, his original vocal tracks on the Dolly track. I noticed that they've been doing a lot of that lately with certain artists that are no longer with us. I see Glenn Campbell. They did an album with Glenn Campbell not too long ago with a bunch of different artists singing duets with him and different things like that. Very interesting. And some of that stuff came out really good.
Yeah, they can't. Well, now with technology, they have so much, there's so much accessible to manipulate it and make it work. Or we didn't have that years ago, not to the capacity that we have it now, you know. So they're able to manipulate it and move it around and make it work. And but yeah, there's a lot more of that going on now. Um, than there has been in recent years. Yeah.
I mean, I guess,
So what's your thoughts about, oh, sorry about
no,
that.
go ahead, Phil.
Go
You're
ahead.
good. You're good.
No, I was, what's your thoughts about AI being used in the music industry? Not to get into controversial stuff, but I would, you've been in the business a long time. What's your thoughts about that?
I'm not for it.
Okay.
To me, it's a group of guys sitting in a room playing music together.
Yeah, same.
It doesn't work for me. That doesn't
Yep.
make, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means I don't like it.
Yeah, and I feel the
It's
same way.
not, it's not, anything that's not real, I'm just not much of a fan of, and,
Mm.
so, and, that's pretty much where I stand on that, but I've always been kind of that way,
Yeah.
anything that's it's not true to life is, and, I wouldn't say I'm anti, I'd just say I'm not a fan.
Yep.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I agree 100%. I know some people really like that aspect, being able to do certain things with that. And I'm just like, how can you not, you know, want a guy in there? The personality of the people playing on the album comes through the music as well. And all of that, is a big part of making music. And you lose that to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
so,
sure, man. Yeah. I mean, we were lucky, that we're probably not going to see bands like AC/DC and Kiss, in the next phase of life, because the industries just took such a dump, and a whole lot of that's been digital downloads has killed us. Because
yeah,
a band can't sell records anymore. A kid's attention span is, when we were young, we'd go buy records and I couldn't wait to open it and read the liner notes and see who played on it and,
yep,
read the lyrics and the credits. And now it's like, if you just like a song, you just go buy a song. It's not
yeah.
driven and it's killed us, you know.
And I
It's
don't understand. I'm with you. I don't understand that because the experience, I mean, because it was always an experience buying the album because the sleeve covers and the inserts and all the credits and whatnot. It was an experience as well as the music, listen to the music. But while you put the album on and start spinning it, you're going through those, the album, the back, and all the inserts and all that kind of stuff, reading the lyrics, and you're going, who wrote the song, who produced it, all the engineering. I don't know if I was kind of a fanatic that way, but I got into it at an early age. There's a lot of music in our house. My mom was very musical. So I got into it at an early age like that. And so the experience of music was it, and now it feels like it's just background noise.
Yeah, well, man, there's a lot of ways, a lot of things you can say about it, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion.
Mm.
It don't mean I'm right, but I just don't think kids care about it, man. They don't care. There's too many distractions now with phones and the internet. They don't care about it, and as I can remember it, and I don't mean this as a slam to Nirvana, but that when they came out, they were real fresh and they sounded really good. But with Kurt playing a like a Mustang guitar or something,
Yep.
that's when I begin to see the decline of not, there was really no guitar solos on records, starting with grunge.
Mm.
And if they were god awful usually. And the decline of wanting a Fender Strat because Hendrix played one. That became less important. And now everybody, a lot of guys I know here in Nashville who are pro players, like, oh, I'll buy a Squire Precision and take it on the road because I don't want to take my good stuff. If I can't take my good stuff, I'm not going. But that's me.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not going to go out and play things that I don't like because I'm trying to preserve something that, Spectre's slogan is bases built for a lifetime, and they are. But you got to be careful with them. I mean, take them out and bust them up, but But if you're careful with them, why not take your good stuff and play it? But that began the decline to me of kids just not caring about instruments or solos, and I don't know, man. You
I
know
kind of
that
So,
I kind of see
so
it
do you
like,
think,
going back
go
to
ahead.
the Nirvana thing, like it seemed to me like at one point, and this is not everybody, but it's at one point when music evolved, or however you want to put it, it seemed like it became more about the image than it did the music. It's
yeah,
kind of,
that's exactly where I'm driving at. Yeah.
yeah,
Became about everything but the music, not
right.
the instruments, not solos, just the image of that flannel shirts and looking like the guy next door and not looking like the rock stars that we grew up with, you know.
Right.
So uh, when you're kind of talking about that, the Kiss, the AC/DCs, the legacy acts of the past, and we're seeing them come to the end of their careers. And do you think there'll ever be a time when legacy bands will exist again? Like when there'll be those bands that
Well, they're
do
all,
40,
as we all
50
know,
years?
they're out beating the daylights out of what's left of the time they have. Styx
Mm,
is still out. Kansas is still out to a degree. And then there's bands like Molly Hatchet, which doesn't have a single member. They're all past. But there's, I forget his name. The guitar player owns the name. So, I mean, yeah, will there be a resurgence? Probably not, because everybody's getting so old. You got to figure I'll be 61 in June, and those guys are probably 10 years ahead of me in their 70s, and their health starts waning. And so, I mean, well, every once in a great while, a band will come along like a Van Fleet or something, that's a really good band that knows how to be a band, and we'll see those come along once in a great while. But will there ever be like another Kiss or an AC/DC? Probably. I don't see them being on that level.
Right.
yeah,
And to sustain as long as they have, that's,
Correct.
yeah,
It's
yep.
hard to do now.
yeah.
Now, Metallica was one of those that did it with no radio, hardly. They hacked it out the rough way, and I was never a fan. I don't own a single record, but I sure liked some of the songs and some of the. Uh, but I was never like, oh my God, I got to run out and get this Metallica. I was never that. Uh, but those guys did it the hard way. They really just got out there and hardcore building a fan base, and through hardcore touring, is how they did it. You know,
Yep, Iron Maiden comes to mind as well as another one of those bands that didn't
Yep,
get a lot of radio play, but they
great.
still pack stadiums around the world today. And
Pretty sure Maiden was the first band to offer to take credit cards at the merchandise table.
oh, really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Oh,
And they were offering packages like, a t-shirt, a CD, a sticker, or whatever, a
mm.
multi-package deal at the merch table, and they would take credit cards. So, you know how that goes. If you got a credit card and you don't see that cash leave your hand, it's pretty easy to
It's
blow, yeah.
Like
uh,
when you're sitting there and they're yanking that, $50, $60 out of your hand, and you're like, "Ugh." Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I get you.
Speaking of Maiden, did you guys see Bruce Dickinson did a couple shows at the Whiskey this past week?
I didn't see that.
I did
He
not see that either.
so he did two solo shows off for his new to support his new record at the Whiskey.
The
And
Mandrake Pub.
fans came from all over the place and line up at the box office, because you had to go to the box office to buy the tickets. They get to the box office, and none other than Bruce Dickinson himself is in the Whiskey box office selling the tickets to the fans.
Oh, that's so
I just
cool.
thought that was really
That's,
cool.
That is.
Yeah.
that's
I
cool,
love
man.
that.
And that's something else you don't get either. Like, you don't get that interaction with a lot of some of the artists you do today, like you did then either. Some of these guys,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and I always appreciated that about a lot of the stuff that we grew up listening to, and seeing some of those guys out there that they still care about the peeps, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, You got anything else for Dave? Otherwise, I was going to see what everybody's spinning this week.
Yeah, I was actually I was wanting to follow up with Dave about his speaking events that he does, his music and speaking events. That fascinated me when I was looking at his website. Do you do a lot of those going into schools? And
I have done some, yes, a lot, no, but I'm wanting to. Uh, and basically what it is I go in and if they want me to play, I'll go play, but it's kind of difficult for a bass player to play all by himself. And but I can do it, and I do it if I'm asked. But going in and talking to kids, basically it's encouraging kids to pursue a career in the arts, and letting them know the real ins and outs of it. Uh, I've lived in near Nashville, Tennessee for the last almost 40 years. And it's one of the last great places you can go and actually make a living downtown playing the bars. I was talking with a friend of mine not long ago, and he said he made 120 grand playing downtown last year. But
oh,
he probably lived down there though,
yeah,
playing doubles and triples every day. And and the way it works here is that the shifts start at 10 a.m. It goes 10 to 2, 2 to 6, 6 to 10 p.m., and 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So, and some guys will sit down there all day, man. And you don't get a break, bro.
wow,
Once the band starts, you're on until the next shift starts. If you're lucky, the singer will do a couple of acoustic songs and let you go to the bathroom.
yeah,
If you're lucky,
Yeah.
and but they want the music continual. So it's pretty tough down there, but you can make some money, Yeah.
Yeah, I got quite a few friends down there that do that, and they say you're just humping all day long, man. You just from one venue to the next, man, with hardly any break, like you said. Very little time
got
to even
those
get something to eat or any of that stuff. They just
little carts. They got their amps on there, the bags, their guitar. They drag it down to the next venue and set up and go again. Yeah, I was hanging out with Danny when you had introduced me to Danny
oh yeah,
Bob,
Danny
and
Wrangle. Yep, Danny
yeah,
Wrangle.
Danny, and I was hanging out with him, and he was playing for an artist, and her name is um, I can't think of her name right now, but anyway, she was fantastic. And they had a break between shows. So they came out with us and we sat and talked, I don't know, for an hour, hour and a half. And we just sit there and bullshit music and whatnot. And he was kind of talking about the scene, and so was she, and discussing. And then a tour manager or booking agent, I should say, came from Norway, was over in their scouting artist and came up and was approached the artist about going over and playing in Norway, and I was like, holy crap, this is there's a lot of activity down here on the scene, so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yep. Yeah, Daniel Wrangle's the guy he's talking about. He's a drummer down there. He's been down there for quite a few years now. A friend of mine that I grew up with in the Quad Cities, where I'm from. I got several of those guys down there now. And that's what they do from sun up to sundown. They're out there humping and playing tunes, man.
Yeah.
So,
It's down there for the taking,
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So what do you think, Phil? We want to talk about what we're spinning this week?
Yeah, are we doing top five?
Yeah, we're going to do the top 5 producers here in a minute, but
Okay,
I'd like to know what
what's
everybody's been listening to here lately.
absolutely, how do you want to do it? Who wants to go first?
I'm fine with letting our guest Dave go first. What you been spinning there,
Okay.
Dave?
Okay. Well, man, you'll find this interesting. I listen to a lot of contemporary gospel
Okay.
music. And
Yeah.
then I go through my phases. I go through my classic rock stuff, Foreigner, Styx, Priest, you know.
Mm.
I listen to a lot of the pop stuff too, Hamilton, Joe Frank and Reynolds and Seals and Croft.
Nice.
I go through these phases, man. It just depends on what I'm in the mood to hear. Sometimes it's Toto, and sometimes it's I have playlist. I create playlists. You know,
Mhm.
I've really been, well, in the last week, I've really been on listening to two of my very favorite fretless bass players, Pino Palladino and Tony Franklin.
Nice.
I dug out the old Firm record. You guys remember that with
Oh
Jimmy?
yeah. Yep.
I dug that out, and I've really been digging on that. And of course, the Paul Young stuff from the 80s. Every time you go away and tear your playhouse down, and that stuff that Pino played on. I got so inspired the other night. I was really listening to Tear Your Playhouse Down by Paul Young, and Pino was playing a fretless with an octave pedal on it. And I got so intrigued with that, man. It ate me up till I had to go hook up all my stuff and sit down and learn it. And it was pretty involved. It was not easy. It took me about an hour, a little over an hour to figure it, most of it out, but it was really cool, and it forced me to do something that I haven't done in a long time.
Nice.
I got my stuff and figure out the sounds, and I actually posted a short video of it on Facebook, asking people if they could identify it, but I do that sometimes. I did the same thing with Della Brown off Queensryche Empire.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Posted that one yesterday that sound, and that was actually a Spectre on that Eddie Jackson played. So yeah, a little of everything for me, man.
Nice. What you got there, Phil?
Same with me. I was so my son and I had a big conversation about Pink Floyd yesterday. So I was spending some Pink Floyd. Also Lionel Richie. I was listening to some Lionel Richie's greatest hits. Cheap Trick. I had to throw on Cheap Trick in color. I like that album is fantastic. And Phil Collins, we talked about that a little bit, Bob, last week.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, I need to explore my Phil Collins catalog a little bit more. So this week has been a lot of 80s pop, some 70s stuff and 80s pop, which, one of my favorite. I love the 70s and 80s. I love everything pop music all the way. Disco. I was just checking out some disco albums that I need to get. I'm just like, I love all music, so I'm going. So I was all over the place, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, disco's great. You gotta love that, Dale. There's a lot of cool bass lines in disco music, man.
Oh yeah, lots.
Yeah.
Bee Gees are one of my all-time favorite bands. I just love Bee Gees' writing style.
I do too. Barry Gibb, arguably, is one of the best songwriters of our lifetime.
Yep, I agree.
So was Dolly, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Yeah.
Right on. Well, I've been kind of into more of the singer-songwriter stuff lately, man. I've been doing a lot of John Prine. I love John Prine. I mean, I think everybody should at least listen to one John Prine record in their lifetime. I mean, you talk about a songwriter. That he just spews greatness from his mouth. I mean, it's amazing. Then I listen to a lot of Paul Thorne. You familiar with the Paul Thorne band?
Is he Canadian?
No, he's actually for Tupelo, Mississippi. He was what made me think of him too was he was really inspired by a lot of gospel growing up, and he's got a lot of soulful tunes and different things, and you can tell that he was very influenced by Southern Baptist churches and all that kind of stuff, and just very good stuff, man. He'd be worth checking out. I think you would enjoy him. His name's Paul Thorne.
I will, man.
Check him out, and like I said, back to John Prine, I've been listening to a lot of his son Tommy Prine lately. He's been out touring. Very entertaining, great songwriter. He learned a lot from his father, obviously, you can tell, and it really shows in his live shows too. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I've been, a lot of singer-songwriter stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Nice.
Yeah. Like I said, it's like you said too, Dave, it's a mood thing. I may get off the horn here and go listen to a Megadeth record. I mean, I don't know what I want to listen to later. It just depends on how I'm feeling.
Well, you got that Motorhead shirt on.
Yeah, I got my Motorhead shirt on today, man. I was feeling Motorhead this morning. But yeah, we can talk about the producer thing. I thought that'd been an interesting topic since you do a lot of producing yourself, Dave, and I'm sure you know a lot of the producers that live down there in the Nashville area, and you probably have some favorites. So we can go around the horn. We'll do our top five. We'll let you start with number five there, Dave. Producer wise, who are some of your favorites?
Well, obviously, Mutt Lang has to be in there. You know, he made some of the greatest records of our lifetime. So I like him a lot.
Yeah, Mutt Lang was great. Actually, he's on my list too. You know, you can't. You know, he did a lot for a lot of people's careers too. The guy just had an ear for it, and he really knew what he was doing.
Yeah, yeah, he sure did, man. He's a unique guy, and he knows what he wants to hear, and he's very nice about it. But he has you play the parts over and over and over and over till he gets what he's hearing or what he's feeling. He does so many takes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he tends to get the best out of people. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
What you got for number five there, Phil?
Number five, I had the Canadian Bob Rock. Um, there was a lot of, I should say, there was a lot of almost made the list, honorable mentions. But Bob came in at number five. His work, you know, The Kingdom Come, the first album, self-titled, Blue Murder, self-titled. You know, his work with Motley Crue. Obviously, he's popular for his Metallica days. But he did a lot of work, you know, The Cult and some of his engineering before that with Loverboy. I was a big Loverboy fan, and his engineering with Loverboy, Bon Jovi. So that he had a nice he's had a nice career, and I've always appreciated his work.
Yeah, I had. Go ahead,
I
Dave.
gotta tell you this, guys, and I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
you go ahead.
you'll appreciate this. I met Bob in Switzerland when I was with Dr. John. And going back to what Phil said, I knew when, you know, Scott Smith, the bass player for Loverboy, was swept overboard off his sailboat in the uh, uh, in San Francisco, which is the most shark infested waters there is. And he was lost at sea. They never found Scott Smith. So I knew he owned this.
All right.
That's the Loverboy Spectre.
Oh, wow.
He sent it to me. I got to keep it for 8 weeks.
Oh man.
Really?
I have video of
Wow.
me playing it in the studio. And but I got my hands on it, dude. That's the one that played Turn Me Loose.
That is super cool,
Wow.
man.
And Bob was so nice, you know, and I wore him out about the bass when I met him because I knew he owned it. And he's like, "Oh, I would be embarrassed to send it to you because it's, you know, it's a mess." And it really was a mess. I had to completely have it rewired, and but man, once we got it up and running, it sounded so good, man. There's not many
That's
basses
cool.
I'd sell the farm for, but that would be one of them right there, buddy. But
No,
anyway, I mean to
I
interrupt
No.
you.
no,
That-
I appreciate you sharing that. That's pretty cool.
I knew you'd
Yeah,
do.
and feel free to jump in like that and tell those stories because I love that. I love that. That's
Right.
great.
Yeah, man. There's a picture of TM when he was a little Steven with the bass.
Oh,
Oh,
very cool.
Yeah.
That is super cool, man.
But anyway, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, well, I had my same number five was Bob Rock also, man. You know, and like it's funny that me and you do this a lot, Phil.
I know. And
But
we don't even
yeah,
talk about it, and you always pick my picks.
well, that's good though. I mean,
No,
you know, like you said, the Metallica stuff, the Motley Crue stuff, and you know, he's done tons and tons of stuff. I mean, we can go on and on all day about Bob, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely got to be in there. I mean, he's a great bass player too, from what I understand. Bob's a player, so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're
he
back. I
was the
think
bass player in Metallica for at least an album, and I
yeah,
don't know if he ever did any shows. I thought he said he did some shows with him too, but um, I wasn't a huge fan of that album, so I won't even mention it. So anyway, we'll jump on to the next one.
all right, Dave, back to you, buddy.
Ted Templeman.
Oh, yes.
Oh, nice.
Ted Templeman did all the Van Halen stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Always liked his work. He did. He was, of course, he had a lot to work with Van Halen.
Mm-hmm.
Had a lot of raw, amazing talent there to work with, but you still got to have that guy guiding the ship. So it would have Ted Templeman would be my next.
Nice. Right on. What you got at number 4, Phil?
So my number 4, I had another Canadian, Bob Ezrin. Um, you know, I became familiar because I'm a huge Kiss fan. I became familiar with Bob from the Kiss days, but also, it was mentioned how he produced Alice Cooper and those acts. So yeah, and his work. I mean, what did he do? Four Kiss albums, a lot of Alice stuff, all that early Alice stuff. I thought interesting. Paranormal. He came back and did some of the recent. Um, Welcome to Your Nightmare 2 and Paranormal with Alice, and great sounding albums. Great sounding albums. But yeah, Bob Ezrin. That's my number 4.
Well, I had your number 4 also, Dave. I had Ted Templeman on there. Like you said, he did a lot with Van Halen. He did some of the early Doobie Brothers stuff. He worked with, obviously Van Halen, Montrose. He worked with a lot of the bands in the 80s, like the Bullet Boys, and did some stuff for Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth solo projects and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that guy's hands are all over all kinds of stuff that we grew up listening to.
Yeah, he sure is, man.
Yeah. Fabulous producer.
Yeah, man.
Who else you got there, Dave?
Man, this is he's been more based in Nashville, but is Dan Huff. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dan. He had
Oh, yeah. He was
lot of
from Giant. Giant, yeah.
yeah. Dan's an amazing talent, for sure. I've always liked Dan's playing, and his production is really good.
If I remember right, I think Dan, wasn't he part of House of Lords too there for a while? Is it?
So
He was a keyboardist, if I'm not mistaken.
he played guitar.
The guitar, okay.
Dan played lead guitar, and he was smoking guitar player, dude.
Yeah,
Really great, really great.
nice. All right, Phil, which one you gonna rip off from me this time?
Well, I'm actually jumping on Dave's bandwagon with the Mutt Lange. He was my number 3. He probably should have been higher, but there's a couple other producers that I really enjoy the work. But yeah, Mutt, just from AC/DC, Foreigner, Def Leppard, The Cars, Bryan Adams. I mean, he's done everybody and everything, and some of his, especially his work with Def Leppard and AC/DC really had a huge impact on me. High and Dry and Pyromania are two of the great albums. And then you also have Highway to Hell and Back in Black, back to back there. So some bookend albums from some legacy artists and yeah, Mutt Lange.
Hey, right on. That's a good one, man.
The other thing, like his work with Cars on Heartbeat City. Mutt, yeah, he wasn't just a rocker, and then he went into country with Shania, and his wife, and who became his wife, and yeah, so he was, Bryan Adams, I mentioned them, and so he did works across different genres. Foreigner 4, that was a great album that he did as well. Another one of my favorite albums. So
yeah, the thing about Mutt, like you said, no matter what kind of record he was producing or what genre it was, the guy always got the best out of the guys he was working with, And I think a lot of people, a lot of the musicians really appreciated that. And I've heard, they've all got the same thing to say about him, he was all business in the studio. We're going to make a great record. And he did that. Yeah. So my number 3 was Jay Joyce. And the reason I'm picking this guy is because one of my favorite country artists is Eric Church. I really enjoy Eric Church's music. I like a lot of the stuff Eric does. And he's pretty much produced just about everything Eric's put out over the last decade or more. And I just love the sound of those records. And I feel like Eric's one of those guys that's consistent with the stuff that he puts out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be my. And like I said, none of these are in any particular order. All these guys we're naming are great producers, or they wouldn't be doing this stuff. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, what you think, Dave?
Quincy Jones.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
nice, nice.
Yeah, Quincy's, I actually got to meet him on the same trip I met Bob Rock in Europe with Dr. John. And it was a brief meeting, but nonetheless, I got to meet him. And just, I've always been a fan. You know, he did so many great records, all the Michael Jackson stuff, obviously, but he had a solo record called The Dude that you guys probably know about.
Mhm.
It's just uh, had a few hits off that record. Just it was just genius. He was just a genius, you know,
Yeah.
producer in my opinion. Yeah, man.
Yeah, he was one of my honorable mentions. It was hard because I probably had 10 that trying to get who fit into the I should say probably the last two spots. There was probably, 7 different producers vying for those 2 spots with me. But so we're on number 2, right?
We are on number 2.
Okay, Martin Birch. So Martin Birch, huge Maiden fan. His work with Iron Maiden is kind of always what I've always gravitated to as far as him as a producer. But Martin actually worked with Fleetwood Mac, Deep Purple, Rainbow, the early Rainbow stuff. He did all that. He did Slide It In. He did a lot of the early Whitesnake as well. Did Slide It In. Who else? Oh, Black Sabbath. He did the Dio years with Black Sabbath. The first 2 albums, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. And another one that I didn't realize that he did this, but Silverhead, the Silverhead self-titled album. I have a couple Silverhead albums that he didn't produce. I didn't realize he did the first one, but that was an interesting. But Martin Birch, he made my number 2 spot.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, my number 2 is one we all had, Mutt Lang, man. So we're back to him again. I don't really need to say much about him. We've talked a lot about him, but I was always intrigued with the Hysteria record. I always thought that was such a great sounding album, that Def Leppard record. I mean, that thing's one of the greatest selling albums of all time, and I still think it's probably in the top 5,
Mm.
of albums sold around the world. I mean, that was just, you put that thing on, man, and it just blows the doors off. I mean, it's just a great record. So yeah, Mutt Lang was my number 2. All right, Dave, we back to you, buddy.
Rick Rubin.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Rick Rubin's, he made some great records with the Chili Peppers and just a lot of good ones that he made over the years. And to the best of my knowledge, he's still doing it. It's so hard because they're like bands, there's so many great producers.
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know.
Yep. Well, that's just it. We could do this all day and we never hit them all, but
Mhm.
Well,
I just like to hear what everybody says. It's kind of interesting. So
and Rick's worked with, you know, all in all different genres of music, and I watched a video on him talking about producing, and he was like, I just know what I want to hear, and he'll be laying on the couch, and the engineers be dialing in all the sound and stuff. He'll be laying there, and he goes, I'm not hearing what I want, and it was interesting how he had the vision for the sound and whatnot. But his work with Johnny Cash, I really appreciated that.
mhm.
That was some fantastic stuff there.
Yep.
All right, Dave. Oh, is it my turn?
That's your turn.
Oh,
That's
yeah. Okay. My bad. Eddie Kramer.
It's a good one.
Yeah, Eddie Kramer, again, huge Kiss fan. So Eddie Kramer was always the guy that I loved the sound that he got for Kiss. You talk about Alive, doing the Alive album that kind of broke Kiss. And if you go back and listen to the first album, the demos that were done with Eddie, to me, Eddie should have produced the first album and, their debut album. But his work, Rock and Roll Over is one of my all-time favorite albums. It's my favorite Kiss album. His work on that, Ace Frehley's 78 solo album, and the Ace Frehley albums that Eddie did as well. As far as what he did outside of that, Kings of the Sun, Fastway. There's a couple Fastway albums I just absolutely love. The Trick or Treat album and the debut album from Fastway that he did with them. But yeah, Eddie Kramer, I just always appreciated his work and I just love the way he gets albums to sound. So
Nice. All right, well, I'll end it with this one. We got Andy Johns.
Yeah.
nice.
Andy, I gotta throw Andy John's name out there. Clapton, Stewart, Zeppelin. Worked a lot with one of my favorite rock bands, LA Guns. He did a lot of their latter stuff. So Andy Johns was another one of those guys like Mutt Lange and and Bob Rock. Those guys were all kind of different, but one and the same. They all did their great things, always got the best out of their artist. And it wouldn't be fair if I didn't mention Andy Johns.
Yeah, I have an Andy Jones story.
Let's hear it.
I worked with a little bit in the studio with Fred Corey from Cinderella, and he had been able to work with Andy, and he said he wanted that Bonham sound, and Andy was very reluctant. He didn't want, he said, and he's finally he aggravated him so much. He went in there and he set up just like he did with Bonham. And Fred played his drums and went in to hear the playback. And he was like, "Oh my God." He said, "That's it." And Andy said, turned around and said, "It's been done." And he wouldn't let him record like that. He said, "It's been done," he said. So that was fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
That is a great one. Well, heck, man, I tell you what, one thing I'd like for you to do before we get off here, Dave, is I'd like for you to let everybody know a little more about, some of the stuff you have to offer, where they can find you. I know you do have some merch for sale and that different kind of thing. So if you want to throw that out there, that'd be great.
Well, thank you, man. Everything that I have currently is available on my website. It's just davefowler.com.
Okay.
I have the Leonard Skinner tribute record that we made with Dolly and Sammy Hagar and everybody. It's available there on vinyl and on CD. I have my, my merch, my t-shirts, and I just created a new Patriot t-shirt for election year. That's real cool.
Awesome.
And vinyl stickers of the angry, I call him the Angry Patriot. It's real cool looking, and I own all the rights to it. So, but yeah, my website, and I'm starting to put single songs up that I wrote and played on. They're all like pop, rock, funk songs. There's one on there that's available right now at my website, and called "One Time Will Never Be Enough." And I'll be putting more music up here and there. I'm not really going to put it on iTunes because they take half, and it's hard for the writers and artists to make any money as it is. But I have some music and the shirts and the Patriot shirts, and the website for the Patriot shirts is Dedicated Patriots, plural, dedicatedpatriots.com, but it goes to my website.
Okay.
The merch page on my website. So, but I appreciate you asking. Thank you for that.
No, thank you for sharing. We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
We really appreciate your time today, Dave. It was awesome chatting with you, like always. I look forward to doing some of the roundtable episodes with you. I'll let you know way ahead of time before we decide to book those. And I know you had said something about maybe getting Ken on one of those with us, or
Yeah, you bet. We
and,
should be able to make that happen. Sure.
that would be fun to have you guys on together and just talk about random stuff and music business and all that. Sound like it'd be a great time.
Oh yes, for sure, man.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, buddy. Enjoy that bike ride.
You guys too, man.
You bet. Thanks, Dave.
You bet. Thanks,
Pleasure.
Phil.
Take care,
Yeah.
brother. Have a great day.
You too, man. Thank y'all.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.